There is something about Aston Villa which Arsenal just don't quite like.
No, I don't think it'll be comfortable at all. I think Villa are in such a great vein of form. I don't think you're just going to roll them over or it'd be a comfortable evening.
Emery would love nothing more than to get one over on the club that decided to dispense with his services.
I also don't get this clamour from so many people to want to make out like Arsenal, don't look like they're going to win the title, and that they're starting to show that pressure that's on them. And I'm just thinking, well, hang on, I think they've done really well actually to just muddle their way through, still top of the league.
What would worry me as an Arsenal fan, and this is where if Aston Villa can just stick in the game, they might get some joy. Once Brighton scored, then David Raya makes that wonder save to deny Minte the equaliser. The atmosphere suddenly in the stands became really nervous. You could feel the anxiety, and I do think that spread onto the pitch, and Brighton actually didn't really take advantage. If that happens again in midweek, Aston Villa can take advantage.
Arsenal need to kick on when they get to a position of strength rather than taking their foot off the gas.
Again, it's just that lack of clinicalness, I would say, and it's not as if they haven't got the talent to put the chances away.
Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access. Yes, it's me, Sam Matterface, croaking my way through the winter lurgy. Alex Crook, absolutely fine. You absolutely fine?
Well, I am, but I'm sat next to you. Can you just keep turning your head forward rather than in my direction?
I thought you'd be absolutely okay because you are fueled by a diet which scientists describe as not recommended, but as you describe as happy hour. Let's have a happy hour previewing the rest of the festive fixtures with Dashboard Dean Ashton, who has moved from his solitary confinement cell, looking at our YouTube here, into what can only be described as a B&Q showroom. Hello.
Hello, chaps. Yeah, I just like to mix things up, you know that.
I love the upgrade. I mean, it's the Ford Mondeo look, then it's the sort of isolated cell look, looking like you're sort of, institutionalized. And then now today, it looks like you've gone on the hunt for a bit of a Christmas Boxing Day bargain in the sales. Going to get some homeware sorted out. And you're in one of those Magnolia showrooms at B&Q or Homebase, something like that. It's lovely.
Nice of them to let me just hook onto their Wi-Fi. You know how I like to steal the old Wi-Fi.
We know how you don't like to pay for Wi-Fi. We're in the midst of the Christmas grey area now. How are we sort of feeling? Are we feeling okay?
Yeah, good. Had a great time down in Ramsgate, actually, in your neck of the woods, down in Kent. That was a few nice days away.
Ramsgate's not my neck of the woods.
Well, it's Kent, isn't it?
Kent's a big place.
You're a man of Kent, as you keep telling me.
Well, I sort of straddled London and Kent, whereas Ramsgate's very much coast.
Yeah. I loved it, though. Very festive down there. Loads of pubs. I'm all in favour of that. And now, straight back into the football.
A big weekend of action to unpick and unpack, and another big week to come. Arsenal versus Villa, a pivotal game in the title race. We'll be doing that. Relegation race, bottom three starting to drift away. West Ham, oh my word, Dino, what on earth is going on? You've got 2 words to sum up how they are right now.
Absolutely shambolic.
It's good, it works.
Feels about right.
Aside from the title race, the 3 teams marooned at the bottom of the table as well. There's quite a bunched pack in the middle of the table, only 6 points separating Bournemouth in 15th and Chelsea in 5th. Chelsea throwing away yet another lead against Aston Villa at the weekend, and Bournemouth can't buy a win. What's going on there?
Yeah, no wins in 8. I mean, they are a streaky side, aren't they? If you go back to Andoni Iraola's early days in charge, I think it was 10 games and no wins. So it's not a massive surprise and no cause for panic, but they are going to lose Antoine Semenyo. They're going to lose Marcos Senesi at the end of the season as well. I know there's some reservations about Petrovic and his recent form in goal. So it could be quite an interesting transfer window for Bournemouth.
Okay, let's get into the fixtures that are coming up on Tuesday and Thursday this week, starting with the title race. Villa not going anywhere after another come-from-behind win against Chelsea. Well as 11 straight wins, Aston Villa have now won 18 points from losing positions. They're up to their old tricks once more. Firstly, of having a first half where they almost had the game off, Dean, and then come to life in the second half. They were totally outclassed in that first hour by Chelsea. They had a 0.00 XG in the first 45 minutes. But in the second half, they turned it on. Now, there's a bit of a debate as to whether or not this can continue with them sort of winning matches where the statistics say they don't deserve to. But it's a good habit to get into. But more importantly, do you think it's by design?
I think it's by design in the relentless nature of Unai Emery's team. Once they get momentum in any game, and I guess it doesn't really matter when that is, if the result is on the right side for them, you would expect eventually, that would come to hurt them, especially against the absolute best sides. But again, what he's done is he's been able to keep that squad pretty fresh. A few more changes this season, certainly to the previous two, where it seemed like it was the same set of players that played every single game. So I think he's starting to understand his players and his squad a bit more and getting more out of them in the second half of games when he's changed. But ultimately, it can't be a great sign that you start games as poorly at times as Aston Villa have done. And I would expect that to come to an abrupt halt against the best teams.
Yeah, and we talked about this on our show on Monday, that I think actually they have to be considered as contenders for the title because of the tactical adaptability of Unai Emery. He manages to make changes at the right time and managers struggle to react to it. He did it in the game against Arsenal, actually, and turned the tide after Arteta had made his own changes. He did it against Maresca at the weekend, and Maresca had no answer for it. And I think that ability to be able to switch in games and change the emphasis of the attack gives them an added advantage. Now, I think sometimes you can label someone a genius for being able to do that, and it can be a little bit too much because, let's be honest, if Chelsea had scored any of the chances they had in the first half, it would have been a different conversation today.
Yeah, and not dissimilar against Manchester United at home. Villa actually scored at the end of that first half when United were the dominant force. I have a slightly different opinion to you. I understand the argument that he's got these finishers on the bench and he makes the right subs at the right time. I don't think you can keep doing that all season. And you look at the expected goals table, which our producer Jeremy sent over on Sunday. Villa are one of the biggest overperformers in that regard. Can you keep doing that? I'm not sure you can when it gets to the thick of a title race. So I don't see Villa as contenders.
You can keep doing it. I mean, you can't keep doing it forever. It will even itself out eventually, but it might not even itself out, Dino, over the course of a season. It might be a longer period than that. It might be that they are just a little bit fortunate at certain times, and then the tide might change next year. But Crook is right. The statistics suggest this team should be in the bottom half of the table, not challenging for the title.
I know, and look, they're going to continue to have a lot of fixtures, but I wonder whether, again, look, January's going to be so big for so many of the clubs in the Premier League, and how that can change the outlook in the second half of the season. And Villa might be one of those teams that's able to strengthen a little bit more, knowing that they are in a title race. It has got that, obviously not the same as Leicester, but it was like we kept saying about Leicester, well, they can't keep just counter-attacking against teams and winning games the way they were and defending the way they were with those players that they had, and they kept doing it. So as long as the players are comfortable and you're getting the response from the players that are left out, which he clearly has been getting from not just Watkins but many others that have sat and wait for their chance, I guess there's no reason why it can't continue, certainly for the rest of this season. Over a longer period, you wouldn't expect that to continue. But I just wonder whether Villa will do a little bit in January. Just give him a little bit more to have a real chance at it.
I was looking there for Alex Crook's transfer notebook, and then I realised that it was all in his head. So tell us, how much money have they got to spend, and are they going to splash the cash to go for the title in January?
I'm not sure they are. Obviously, this time last year, they made some really astute signings. Donny Marlon, who actually has taken a while to come to the boil, but has had a really good first half of the season. Marcus Rashford, Asensio coming in on loan, and that was to try and kick on and qualify for the Champions League. I'm just not sure that because of the current PSR rules that they've got those kinds of funds. Maybe they might be able to do a couple of loan deals, but obviously they've got one slot that's already taken domestically by Harvey Elliott, and he's not getting any game time at all. So, yeah, I asked Unai Emery directly after the game against United, and he dodged the question really, but I just got the impression that that Villa aren't going to be one of the more active clubs in this window.
So tell me what it's like to be a striker who is going to be labelled a finisher from now on, because off the bench to make the difference was Ollie Watkins at the weekend. And look, I'm not suggesting for any moment that he's going to be a super sub going forward, but Unai Emery did say that there was every possibility that he makes a greater impact coming off the bench than he does when he starts matches for Aston Villa. Is that something that you dread to hear as a striker, Dean Ashton?
Yes, it is, of course, because you want to start games. You don't want to miss minutes as a striker. And to be honest, I don't think it means anything, really. I think it's Unai Emery's done really well, I think, to manage Ollie Watkins, because he's been out of form at the start of the season. He's stuck with him. He's now taking him out and putting him back in. And I just think he's managing him. And what he's saying, I wouldn't take massively seriously, because I just think he's doing whatever it takes at the moment to just give Ollie Watkins the least amount of pressure that he can, to make him still feel like he's, so important to the team, whether he's starting or whether he's an impact substitute. And I actually think it's been really good management of the player, and his attitude's great anyway, Ollie Watkins. He's handled it very well, but I think the manager needs credit for the way he's handled that situation as well. Because sometimes you need an arm around you. You need someone to guide you through a difficult period, which I think the manager did.
Do you think that he will start against Arsenal?
He's an Arsenal fan, isn't he? He scored goals against Arsenal in the past.
He loves scoring against Arsenal.
I think he might. I think he'll start Ollie Watkins. I think if you come off the bench, you make that kind of impact, as much as Emery has sort of laid the foundations for the fact he might be a super sub moving forward. I think he'll get the nod.
Ollie Watkins has scored 4 goals in his last 5 Premier League away games against Arsenal. That sort of statistic does stick in your mind if you're a Premier League forward, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things as a player. If you get on one of those runs, or you feel confident at a certain ground or against certain players, and again, it's kind of worked perfectly, hasn't it, for Emery, in that he's left him on the bench, he's come on and made an impact, and it's a really easy decision then, isn't it, just to put him in against a team that he's been really good against. I'd fully expect him to start, and it wouldn't be surprised if he has quite an impact in the game.
Yeah, some players just feel a little bit more comfortable in different environments, don't they? Ollie Watkins feels very comfortable at the Emirates. He also feels comfortable at Stamford Bridge. In fact, I think he's scored more Premier League goals in London than anybody else over the last 3 or 4 years, than Erling Haaland. In fact, apart from Erling Haaland, who scores everywhere. But, Dean Ashton, very comfortable in a Ford Mondeo. Not so comfortable, I don't think, in the B&Q set, the homeware section. I think he's not giving off as comfortable vibe today as he does usually.
And he definitely wasn't comfortable when he was left on the bench at the talkSPORT trophy match so that Alex Crook would start.
He wasn't happy about
By his former manager, Alan Pardew, as well.
Yes, that was weird. That was that moment where me and Crook, as the 2 only non-footballers, were standing on the halfway line looking at each other and saying, what the hell are we doing here? And then very quickly everybody else was asking, what the hell are they doing there? Dino, in terms of their next opponents, they go to the Emirates. They have a very, very big job on their hands to try and keep this winning run going, 11 wins in a row. Arsenal on this run of 13 wins in 14 Premier League games. Emery would love nothing more than to get one over on the club that decided to dispense with his services. But Alex is of the view that this is going to be a more comfortable Arsenal victory than many people think. Do you think the same thing?
No, I don't think it'll be comfortable at all. I think Villa are in such a great vein of form. I don't think you're just going to roll them over or it'd be a comfortable evening. And they're still missing key players. So we're not quite sure of the fitness of a few of the Arsenal defenders. Obviously, Gabriel came on and I would expect him to start. So that is obviously a big plus, but I also don't get this clamour from so many people to want to make out like Arsenal, don't look like they're going to win the title, and that they're starting to show that pressure that's on them. And I'm just thinking, well, hang on, they've fully got through this difficult period with the injured players that they've had, which has been pretty bad from any side.
You're talking about him, aren't you? You're talking about him, aren't you?
Of course I am. And they're top of the league. fixtures that they struggled with last season that they've just had, they've come through them. And sometimes when you've got those injuries, players coming back, Gyökeres back from an injury, Jesus back from an injury, I think they've done really well actually to just muddle their way through, still top of the league. And Manchester City have had a great run of fixtures and most of their team fit.
Yeah, I'm in your camp. You're a little bit more sceptical about Arsenal. In fact, you text me after the Wolves game telling me that their backside had gone. But they won that game and they've won all the subsequent games as well. You were at the game against Brighton at the weekend. Did they convince you any more?
They did in the first half, probably for the first hour, actually. They were the dominant force. Martin Odegaard, who struggled to get back to full fitness, looked really good again. Bukayo Saka, whose numbers actually in 2025 haven't been great. He really terrorised Maxim de Kuyper, the left wing back for Brighton. He was taken off at half time. Defensively, Brighton didn't lay a glove on them, obviously even with Declan Rice playing at right back. So, yeah, for me, that the first hour convinced me. What would worry me as an Arsenal fan, and this is where if Aston Villa can just stick in the game, they might get some joy. Once Brighton scored, then David Raya makes that wonder save to deny Minte the equaliser. The atmosphere suddenly in the stands became really nervous. You could feel the anxiety. And I do think that spread onto the pitch. And Brighton actually didn't really take advantage. If that happens again in midweek, Aston Villa can take advantage.
Do you know what I think is really interesting? There's a lot of teams that are winning games or getting ahead in games and then losing leads. It happens quite a lot now. It's happened to Liverpool a few times. It's happened to Newcastle a lot this season. It happened to Chelsea against Villa at the weekend again. Arsenal in a situation where they keep getting themselves 1-0 up and then just slightly regressing, almost as if the job is already done. You know, Arsenal need to kick on when they get to a position of strength rather than taking their foot off the gas. Is that because, Dean, the Premier League is so competitive that it's that hard to get yourself in front of the game? It's even more difficult to go and push home that advantage and make it 2.
I think so, but also since we've changed to 5 substitutes, I think that's had a huge impact on the ability of managers being able to really shift the momentum in games with 3 or even 4 substitutes in a short period of time. You know, you can change a system and have a totally different looking team almost from those substitutes. And I think that's probably had the biggest impact, I would say. But Arsenal, again, it's just that lack of clinicalness. I would say that the chances there against Brighton, you know, again, really should be taking 1 or 2 of those opportunities, and then the game's more comfortable. You can sit back a little bit more. I see City do it a lot. They get 2-0 ahead, and you almost know the game is over because they're so good at keeping the ball, nullifying the opposition, and Arsenal are just lacking just that clinicalness at the moment, and it's not as if they haven't got the talent to put the chances away.
Well, that game is live on talkSPORT on Tuesday night. It's Arsenal against Aston Villa, and Arsenal have lost 3 of their last 5 Premier League matches against Aston Villa and could see Villa complete a league double over the Gunners for the 3rd time in 6 seasons. There is something about Aston Villa which Arsenal just don't quite like. You mentioned Manchester City and the fact that they get 2-0 up in games and they can cruise a little bit. That wasn't the case on Saturday when they played Nottingham Forest. They got the job done in that match, but it wasn't a vintage performance by any stretch of the imagination. I thought they did really well, actually, because Forest played superbly, I thought, in the first half. Really didn't give them any room. They were on top of them all the way through. They had chances themselves. They had the best chance of the game in the first half with that ball that comes through the penalty area. And Igor Jesus and Morgan Gibbs-White both miss it. But Manchester City found a way. They've got goals from different areas of the pitch. And for the first time, we're talking about the fact that there are other contributors apart from Erling Haaland.
Yeah, Rayan Cherki's form has been exceptional. And I think he's going to have a big say in this title race. Phil Foden has been back on song for a few weeks now as well. Looks like they're going to add Antoine Semenyo to give them even more firepower in midfield. And I think Pep Guardiola will be pleased they've managed to win a game without Erling Haaland being the dominant force in that respect. And
I thought you were going to say touching the ball.
Well, Pep said afterwards, didn't he, this is a game last season where we probably would not have won. And I agree with him. But I was watching it in the Arsenal press room. The Arsenal staff were all getting there excited at 1-1. And I was saying, calm down, guys. Man City will nick this. They will find a way to win. And I think that's the biggest difference between this Manchester City and the one that surrendered the title so meekly last season.
There's a lot of differences between this Manchester City and last year's Manchester City, the capitulation, as you've already mentioned, but they also look as if they've got a bit of steel in midfield, which is really important. No Rodri, but Nico Gonzalez is playing really well. At the base of that midfield, he deserves a lot of credit. That area is so important for City. The Titans are also helping out Foden and Cherki, but the 2-8s definitely having a role in the team. It's almost like a Christmas tree formation for Pep Guardiola at the moment. And certainly, Cherki delivered at Christmas.
He did.
Yeah, sliced them open.
I think he's been delivering for a while, so you could say that, Christmas has come early for Cherki.
Yeah, and I also saw that reindeers also got involved over the weekend as well. He's
very, very good.
He's a pretty good footballer too. They have won the last 7 Premier League games against Sunderland. Do you expect them to win this one as well? Because, do you know what? It's gone under the radar a little bit, Dino. Sunderland are still unbeaten at home, even though they weren't the better side in the game against Leeds at the weekend.
No, they weren't. They'd be disappointed about that. But I just think, that game against Nottingham Forest was a difficult fixture with the way Sean Dyche has kind of got them back to being harder to beat, especially at home. And you could see that it was a difficult game for Manchester City. And I expect this to be the same. I think they've had a really good run of fixtures that they've been able to build up this momentum and the wins that they've put on the board. But I think coming up, they've got some much more difficult fixtures that will really see just how far this sort of new Manchester City side has got to, and whether actually Arsenal will then get a little bit more credit after the few games that they've coming up. And it starts with this game. Sunderland will make it so difficult for City to have any room, for Cherki to have any room. I watched them at Anfield, Sunderland, and they were absolutely superb at nullifying that space that City will want. And I think without the likes of Doku out wide, whether he brings in Savinho, who might just give them a little bit more on the right-hand side, because the space is going to be out there for City. But look, you wouldn't back against Man City, but I don't think they're going to win this game.
Oh, interesting. Sunderland away from home is the New Year's Day game for Manchester City. It's live on talkSPORT 2. Then they take on Manchester City take on Chelsea at home, which was on Sunday the 4th of January. That's when there's another full slate of Premier League action. Then they go back to the Etihad to take on Brighton. They've got that brief FA Cup game, the first leg of the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. Then they've got the Manchester Derby. Then they go away to the Arctic Circle in January. It's cold in May. Let me tell you, it'll be very, very cold. In January, they take on Bodo Glimt. Then they've got Wolves at home and Galatasaray away, some lighter fixtures before they play Tottenham, Newcastle and Liverpool at the beginning of February. So there's a hell of a lot of big games for Manchester City to come. And looking at the Arsenal fixtures around the same time, they too don't have it easy. They've got Aston Villa live on talkSPORT on Tuesday night. Then they go to Bournemouth, who are on a bad run. But then they've got Liverpool live on talkSPORT. And I think those two fixtures absolutely pivotal to see what happens in the title race. It's going to be a big old period for both Manchester City and for Arsenal. And interestingly, Erling Haaland, we talked about him, didn't touch the ball too much in the game against Nottingham Forest, although he did make one good defensive intervention towards the end of the first half. But he goes to the Stadium of Light for the first time. He's scored at 22 of the 23 grounds that he's been at previously. Which is the one he hasn't managed to score at, Dino?
It's a great question.
Portman Road?
Oh, no. Crookmeister to Steel. He's been there more than most.
Goodison Park?
Nope. Anfield.
Ah, okay.
There you go. Big games. Ducks it in the big games, Dino. Can't do it in the big games. Can only do it against the meek opposition. I'm only joking. That's it for the battle at the top of the table. Let's look towards the bottom now. And it's grim reading for West Ham United fans. Producer Jeremy, by the way, trying to throw a little spanner in the works there. Haaland apparently scored for Red Bull Salzburg at Anfield. Brilliant. That's not in the Premier League. I don't think Salzburg qualify for the Premier League, do you?
Not last time I checked.
No, I don't think so.
He's getting a bit ahead of himself, isn't he, young Jeremy?
He is.
Leeds have picked up a few points. He's a bit bullish now.
Oh, Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored some goals. All of a sudden, he's getting a little bit chirpy in the background.
We need to put him back in his box.
Yeah.
United will do that when they go to Ellen Road early January. Don't worry.
Yeah. It always makes you want to see him go back to the Championship, really, doesn't it?
Get back in your lane.
That'll shut him up for a bit. Only joking, Jeremy. We love Leeds United. We love going there. And we're going there at the weekend when they take on Manchester United. West Ham might be going back to the Championship, though, Dino, because the gap of 5 points is the biggest between a side in the drop zone at this stage of the season ever in Premier League history. Never before has the gap been so big at Christmas. I mean, it's a sizable task for West Ham. And actually, they've got 2 fixtures that are coming up that they really have to win. One of those is Nottingham Forest, and the other one is against Wolverhampton Wanderers. But before that, they're at home to Brighton, which is a difficult fixture, and always difficult when you've got a crowd that have sort of seemingly lost interest.
And I think that's the issue. It's for a long time now been not a particularly pleasant place to play football, because the supporters are gutted at what they're watching, are gutted at the way the club has regressed since David Moyes has left, and seemingly the recruitment hasn't been what certainly the supporters would have hoped for. Nuno's come in, and you think they're going to make them more defensively resolute. We haven't really seen a lot of that. I think they've got such a massive job, and the owners are obviously taking a huge amount of flack for it, and I don't think that relationship between the supporters and the owners is going to improve anytime soon. But I tell you what they can do is you've got to do something in January. If you want to stay in the Premier League, they have to do something in January that is going to give them the players, because I don't think it's going to take too many, because they have got talented players in that squad. So adding a couple in...
Where?
In the defence. I mean, defensively, I think it's obvious that they've struggled. I still think the midfield area could be bolstered.
They need a forward.
And you need a centre forward.
So they basically need a spine of the team, is what you're telling me, is that after winning the Conference League, they basically haven't invested in the spine of the team, which feels like a dereliction of duty from the owners, really.
Yeah, the recruitment's been poor. Even last summer, when a lot of us were saying they'd had a really good transfer window, not many of those signings have lived up to the hype. I think John-Claire Todibo has been poor. Crook obviously is the highest profile example. Wan-Bissaka's done okay, but obviously he's not available at this moment in time. The whole squad feels imbalanced. There's no real pace in the team. They paid over the odds for Max Kilman, who looks like he's struggling for confidence. I'm not sure they've got a first-choice goalkeeper at the moment. So you probably need to bring in a player in every position. And because they've spent badly in the past, they're not in a brilliant position with regarding to PSR. And then you look at the names who are being linked. Nathan Ake, we reported on talkSPORT today.
He's going to go from Manchester City to West Ham.
No,
sorry.
I think he'll have his sights set higher. And then you look at the players they're looking at in Dean's old position, 2 from the Championship in Josh Sargent, who wasn't great there for Norwich in the Premier League last time round. Haji Wright, who doesn't score bags of goals, and Coventry won't let him go anyway. Jorgen Strand Larsen, whose confidence is through the floor, and do you really want to sign a player from another team who are heading down? And Beto is the most baffling one for me. What do they see in Beto that makes them think he's going to score goals in the Premier League?
Here's a question for you: what makes West Ham a attractive proposition? Because I've made it clear I don't think Nathan Ake will switch Manchester City for West Ham. That's no disrespect to West Ham, but come on, get real. He's playing for Manchester City, who could win the title, might win the Champions League, certainly could be contenders for both. He's not going to just voluntarily turn around and go, oh, okay, I'll go into a relegation battle, because it means I might get some more game time. I mean, that's just ludicrous to me. Josh Sargent, you've mentioned, Crook. I mean, he's not exactly someone who you would pin your hopes on to keep you in the division. Then there's Jorgen Strand Larsen. I mean, what makes West Ham an attractive proposition for a prospective new signing?
That they're in London for a start, and that does have an effect on certain players. Certainly players coming from abroad. I think the support that they have. I think if you're a player and you know you take interest in what the support is like at a football club, but if they cannot, in a World Cup year, bring in a striker that needs to play to give himself a chance to make sure he's in a World Cup squad, then I don't know when you can. It's the perfect opportunity to get out there and get somebody that needs to play, that wants to play in the Premier League, looking at their sights set on a World Cup place. So they should be out there getting that player. That they have to be there. It happens every World Cup year where there's players available that you just think, how have we got that player? Well, he needs to play. So go out and get them.
Which is fascinating because I don't know who's doing the scouting and the recruitment at West Ham now, because Carl McCauley's gone, Tim Steidten's gone, sporting director is officially Mark Noble, but I'm not entirely convinced that he's the one sitting on the laptop going through Y-Scout, finding who the best player is. And that's no disrespect to Mark. I just don't know if he's given the power by the owners to be able to do that.
No, David Sullivan does a lot of the recruiting himself, and that hasn't really worked. You've got Karen Brady, obviously has a say on how the club is run, certainly when it comes to appointing managers. You've mentioned Mark Noble there. You've got the Czech minority owner who has a say in it all as well. So it's all a bit disjointed. It's disjointed on the pitch. It's disjointed in the dugout because Nuno hasn't made the impact that they would have been hoping for. And it's disjointed in the boardroom as well. I think they're doomed, West Ham. I take on board what Dean is saying. But I look at Leeds at this moment in time and they've found a structure that is getting them results in the Premier League. They've got a striker in Dominic Calvert-Lewin who can't stop scoring. Forest aren't going to stay down there. The squad is too good, arguably the best squad that Sean Dyche has ever managed. Bournemouth, I know a lot of people are concerned about, but again, I think they've got enough quality and a good enough manager to get out of trouble. I don't see a way back for West Ham.
Yeah, but I mean, not being rude, you do like to make a bold prediction every now and again. You've told us that Liverpool have won the title, Arsenal have won the title, and now Manchester City are going to win the title, and we aren't even halfway through the season yet. So things can change quickly. And wins against Brighton, Wolves, and then Nottingham Forest in the next 3 games.
They won't beat Brighton.
Might sound optimistic, Dino, but if they were to win those games, or at least get 2 victories out of those 3, the whole complexion of the relegation race starts to change.
Yes, it does, and it can happen because they have got players that can win them games when they're absolutely on top of their form. Paquetá and Bowen are 2 players that can win West Ham games. But when I watch West Ham, they don't look like a team that understand where they are. They don't look like a team that realise you've got to keep the ball out of your net to give yourself a chance. You have got to make it so difficult for the opposition at the moment. And even if that means taking, a draw, 0-0 here and there, get a draw from Fulham at the weekend. You don't lose that game. They don't look and prepare like a team, for me, that know they're in a real scrap and that before they know it, that gap will be too far to even claw back for a team that might bring in a couple in January, and that's the worry.
And does that worry you that Thomas Souček, who is obviously a committed player, he might not be at the top of his game right now, but he is someone who certainly you can rely on to put every ounce of effort in, is questioning the attitude of some of the players in training?
Absolutely, and I'm slightly surprised he hasn't maybe played a bigger part in some of the games, because he is one of those players that you can rely on to be committed. He is a player that can certainly get you a goal when that's something they've really struggled with, and he seems like the type of character that wouldn't say that unless he really meant it and he really thought it, and that's the worry.
Yeah. Wolves plucky losers yet again. They went down 2-1 to Liverpool. Actually gave them a bit of a good game in the second half. If they can't win that match at home to West Ham, then they've got no hope of a win all season. They've already lost at home to the rest of the bottom 5. I'll make a bold prediction. They are going down. But Crook is a little bit worried about their next game.
Yeah. Listen, it's natural pessimism when it comes to Manchester United, because every time you think they're going to put a run of form together, they tend to let you down, like they did at home to 10-man Everton, like they did against Grimsby in the League Cup. It was a really gutsy win they got against Newcastle. It should be the start of a springboard to go on and pick up some wins in a favourable looking set of fixtures. But I just watched Wolves at Anfield. Dean was there in the second half in particular at the weekend. They gave a really good account of themselves, as they did against Arsenal in their last away game against one of the big 6. So I don't think this is going to be a walkover, particularly with the absentees that United have got, that maybe a lot of the home fans arriving at Old Trafford will expect.
Okay, don't panic too much. It's going to be okay. It's all right. He had to go at Martin Keown last year for being concerned about West Ham, and he gave him an absolute stick. Believe in your team. Can't believe it. They're almost relegated, and you're having a go saying that Arsenal can't beat them. You want to win the title. You want to get into the top 5, and you don't think you can come over and beat Wolverhampton Wanderers at home on a Tuesday night in December. Outrageous. The side's just above the drop, Nottingham Forest. I thought they were right against Manchester City, actually. A little bit unlucky to come away with nothing in that game. I think they'll be okay. They've got a home clash with Everton this week, which sees Sean Dyche go up against the side that sacked him, so he'll have an extra bit between his teeth. Goals have been the problem for them. Igor Jesus has scored a few goals, but most of those have come in cup competitions, only one in the Premier League. And although he held the ball up quite well latterly in the game against Manchester City, they are going to require goals from other sources, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I think his all-round game's pretty good, Igor Jesus, and I think he's getting into the right positions and maybe just looking a little bit clumsy with the chances I've seen, certainly in the Premier League. When he came on, so you wonder whether Sean Dyche will stick with him or give Awani the opportunity. Obviously, Chris Wood's missing, and that clinicalness that he gave Nottingham Forest last year was probably the key and the springboard to their success. So it is about trying to find, the player that's going to get you the goals, the player that's in form, and it has been something that Sean Dyche at times has struggled with the sides that he's managed, is finding that striker that can be given enough opportunities and get the goals that they need.
Chris Wood actually was had surgery already on the knee injury that was keeping him out. He's going to be out for longer term, so they're going to have to find a way to deal without him. He's going to be probably out for most of the rest of the second half of the season. Above them are Leeds United. Jeremy, very happy. Jeremy is our podcast producer. He's very happy about Dominic Calvert-Lewin now on a 6-game scoring streak, bettered only by Jamie Vardy's scoring streak of 8 in the Premier League for an Englishman. So, here's the big question. Should he be in Thomas Tuchel's thoughts for the friendlies in March? Dean Ashton.
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
I think he's really obviously got into great form. You can't knock what he's done recently. The shot map or the goals map is beautiful to look at because it just shows how important it is to get in the middle of the goal as often as you can do and be alive and good movement to those situations. And it gives
does look
you
a little bit like the computer's crash, doesn't it?
It does a bit, yes. But again, I think we're talking certain levels, and I'm not sure Dominic Calvert-Lewin is that level. I just don't. I think he's on a great streak, and it's fantastic for him. And if he stays fit, you can see him doing well. But I think that there's another level that England should be looking at.
You know what the talkSPORT social media team are like. You know what the headline is here. Dean Ashton says that England should ignore top English goalscorer in Premier League. He's not at the level. You know that's coming out. That's going all over your socials. Definitely.
I take his point on board, though. Listen, he's on a tremendous run of form, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but this is probably only the second time really in his Premier League career that he's enjoyed this kind of success in front of goal. I think when you're talking about beating Spain and Argentina and France, as England probably will have to win the World Cup, I think you do need a player a level above. I don't think we've got one, by the way, when it comes to an understudy for Harry Kane. I don't think we've got a player anywhere near the same quality. But if Ollie Watkins keeps delivering, he's obviously delivered in the big moments for England in the past, I think he will get the nod to go as Kane's backup.
Leeds take on Liverpool on New Year's Day live on talkSPORT. It's a 5:30 kickoff. It was 3-3 a few weeks ago. We would like that again, wouldn't we?
We would, but I think Liverpool are in a slightly better place now, although, again, they made harder work of it than it should have been, having gone 2-0 up against Wolves. But obviously Florian Wirtz, slowly but surely, has been getting to the type of form that persuaded Liverpool to pay £116 million. Ekitike looks a real handful. And defensively, they have improved. So I think Liverpool will get their own back on Leeds, because that was quite a painful late equaliser they conceded at Ellen Road.
Let's take a look ahead at some of the other big Premier League games that are taking place this week. Some of the standout fixtures at Old Trafford and at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Now, despite his pessimism, Manchester United are expected to beat Wolves when they meet on Tuesday night, and they could go fourth temporarily. Now, they changed to a back four in the game against Newcastle United. In fact, actually, it was a back six in a sense, because they had a back four and then double fullbacks to stop the crosses coming in after they became a real problem in the second half, Dino. Now, if you're a Man United fan, are you more annoyed that it's taken him so long to get to the point where he's willing to admit that a back four might be better suited for this squad? Or do you praise him for being adaptable?
I think that's personal preference. I think that he's been forced a little bit with the injuries that they've had. I'm not sure this is exactly what he wants, but the defensive and midfield injuries, I think, have forced him to have to change slightly. Obviously, with players going away to AFCON also, that's why the changes have been made. I think ultimately he will go back to the system that we've seen as soon as enough players are back in those positions. But of course, he has to be given credit to adapting the team. He's really just got to be given credit for winning the games. Ultimately, right now it still doesn't matter how you do it. Manchester United need to be back up at the top end of the table, battling for the top four, regardless really of how they're playing.
Well, they're playing some of the best football I have seen them play under Ruben Amorim. In fact, some of the best football I've seen them play for a very long time going forward, right? So against Bournemouth, I thought they were absolutely terrific. There were some moves in that first half against Newcastle United where they were popping the ball around one touch, edge of the area. It was fantastic. Obviously, they're going to miss Bruno Fernandes, although he will be back faster than maybe you expect, because he's Bruno Fernandes and he hates missing football matches and he's doing everything he can to get back, and he's actually been sort of told by Ruben Amorim, just taper it down a little bit. You don't need to rush back. We can do this without you for a little bit, although I'm not sure that's true. But that second half against Newcastle United was painful to watch, wasn't it? I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know where some of those kids came from. Tyrell Malacia, he's been out at PSV Eindhoven. He's been on the beach for 6 months doing absolutely nothing. And all of a sudden, he's plumped straight back in a big Premier League game on Boxing Day. I don't know how they got over the line, to be honest.
No, I agree with Gary Neville. It was one of the stranger Manchester United teams to finish a game, probably in my lifetime. But they got the job done. I wasn't convinced by the changes, taking off Šeško and bringing on Xerxes, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else than Old Trafford. Was an odd one. Casemiro as well, going off when you really need your experienced players, and then taking off two of the centre-backs heading into stoppage time and bringing on Malacia and Fredrickson. If that had backfired, we'd have hammered him for it, but they got the job done. I thought Aidan Heaven was exceptional, Martinez as well. Actually thought Ugarte played quite well in midfield, and Mason Mount was a big loss not coming out for the second half.
Patrick Dorgu.
And obviously Dorgu had the game of his life. I'm not completely sure what happened to him. Hopefully that is a sign of better things to come, because I've been quite critical of him. But ultimately it's wins like that are quite satisfying. I hated watching the second half, don't get me wrong.
Everyone did.
But I enjoyed the end result, which was a gritty 1-0 victory against a side who've done a number on us in recent years.
Do you know, it was so funny? He sent me a text message at full time and said, I think Patrick Dorgu needs drug testing.
He was everywhere, wasn't he?
He was
absolutely sensational.
He was so good. The goal was excellent, brilliant finish. And he was all-round play was superb. And actually, the fact that Amorim positioned him further up the pitch really outfoxed Eddie Howe in that first 45 minutes. And they had to do one of those tactical timeouts where they readjusted and Newcastle came back into it a little bit over that. I'm sure it wasn't tactical. I'm sure Aaron Ramsdale was really injured.
He looked really injured.
He was really injured. He's your mate. He wasn't your mate that night. Brentford against Tottenham. Thomas Frank is going back to his old stomping ground already, and he finds a team that are 3 places above them in the table. What is he thinking going back there this week, do you think, Dean Ashton?
He'll be thinking what a great platform he'd left for Keith Andrews, and what a team he'd built, because they've been terrific at the G-Tech. But what he will know is he knows exactly what they're about. He'll be able to take his Tottenham team, which he has enjoyed this season, away from home, to sit back, to soak up pressure, and almost do what Brentford want to do. And so it's going to be interesting to see, I think, just how deep Tottenham sit away at Brentford, because you could see with the performance against Bournemouth, if you give Brentford the space, Sharda's got so much pace, Thiago's a handful, Damsgaard can pull the strings, they can carve you open. I don't think Thomas Frank's going to allow them.
Well, 38% possession in their last game away from home against Crystal Palace, which isn't what you would say is the Tottenham way of doing things. If he goes to Brentford and puts 10 men behind the ball, plays on the back foot and allows Brentford to dominate him, he's going to be asking for trouble, isn't he?
Yeah, but also, as Dean says, he doesn't want to make it too expansive because they've got the weapons to hurt Tottenham. If you're looking for big positives from Thomas Frank's tenure, and we know that he is a manager who divides opinion amongst Spurs fans, their away form has been exceptional. So he will
Best in the league.
He will have a game plan to go back to the G-Tech and get a result. I think he'd take a point now if you offered it to him. And, you know, we were talking actually on Sunday with Perry Groves and Mickey Gray, and Mickey was advocating for Regis Labrie as potentially a contender for manager of the season. I think Keith Andrews has got to be right up there as well. You know that I was really worried about Brentford taking a chance on someone who'd never managed even in the EFL, let alone the Premier League.
That's generous to yourself, but there you were absolutely scathing about the appointment.
But they've been brilliant. And, you know, the G-Tech is one of the toughest places in the country to go right now. So this is not going to be easy for Spurs. I think they're going to have to be better than they were at Palace. I think they met Palace at a good time.
Do you know what? It's interesting, isn't it, how that was erased from history, the old scathing nature of your takedown of Keith Andrews, the guy that MK Dons didn't even want, I think was the phrase at one stage. A perfect hat-trick, by the way, for Kevin Sharda.
Yeah, he's a great player, you know, and I'm surprised actually some of the bigger clubs are not looking at him, because he can score all kinds of goals, he can create goals, he puts teams on the back foot. I think actually he has been a brilliant foil for Igor Thiago this season.
Absolutely. And Dean Ashton, you know how difficult it is to score goals in the Premier League. For him to do that, it's pretty impressive. Do you know the other two players that have scored hat-tricks in the Premier League this season, Dino? Do you want to guess?
Oh, I mean, I should really know that, shouldn't I? Haaland.
No.
Has he not?
No.
The Premier League. Thiago.
No. Got any ideas, Cookmeister?
Not overly, to be honest.
Anthony Gordon?
No.
Gyökeres?
Come off it.
He got 2 against Leeds, didn't he? No, come on, we'll be in
Foden?
No, it is Mateta. Should have had 4.
Against Bournemouth, yeah.
Should have had 4.
Yeah.
And Eze in the North London derby.
Of course, I was there.
You were there. How did that one slip you by?
It just shows how many games we do.
Yes. I actually fear for Tottenham in this game, because if Brentford are at it, they can do a number on them. They've done a number on everybody at home, so don't be surprised if they do it against Tottenham. They actually have failed to win any of their last 4 Premier League games at home against Tottenham Hotspur, but 3 of those were draws, and the 2-0 defeat last season was the sort of outlier in that. I'd be interested to see what happens here. I think that's going to be a huge game. It's live on talkSPORT on Thursday night, which is, if I remember rightly, New Year's Day, although at this time of the year, I don't know where I am. Dean Ashton hopping from Texas to home base to B&Q just to check out what sort of paint he wants on his new cell walls. He doesn't know what day it is either. And Crookmeister,
Do you want me to do this bit before you croak?
you've got the whole week with me. Yeah, I need your help. You're supposed to be helping me out here. I've had a bad week with allergies.
Well, this is the bit where we list the upcoming games, don't we? Remember, we've got all 10 on the talkSPORT network this week, starting tomorrow night. Some huge games. Burnley against Newcastle. That's quite interesting, given Newcastle's terrible away form. I'll be at Stamford Bridge for Chelsea. Bournemouth. You've got Forest against Everton in the Sean Dyche derby. West Ham, Brighton. Massive for Nuno Espirito Santo, who is going to be right under the cosh if he loses that one. You're at the big game on talkSPORT. Arsenal against Aston Villa is an 8:15 kickoff. Same time on talkSPORT 2, we've got Manchester United against Wolves. On New Year's Day, we're going around the grounds in the EFL for all the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Liverpool against Leeds, live on talkSPORT at 5:30. Palace Fulham at the same time on talkSPORT 2. And then your choice of listening at 8 o'clock, talkSPORT for Brentford against Spurs. talkSPORT 2 is Sunderland against Manchester City. And of course, after all those games are finished, we'll have a big review pod and also a preview to next weekend's Premier League action.
See, if you could have done most of that, I mean, you did have a little stumble towards it, but if you'd done most of that at the beginning, I wouldn't have had to come in today. You could have saved my voice for the Arsenal-Aston Villa game. But anyway.
I was just going to say, that's the most professional I think I've ever seen Alex Crook. That was simply...
Do you know what? I was doing the auto cue for him. I was doing the little wheel thing so that he could read it as he went. It was like a proper teamwork little moment. He did deliver it so beautifully, didn't he?
Yeah, clearly it is old remedies that get you through these tough times over Christmas.
Oh, don't worry about that. Oh, don't worry about that. I am now going to spend the rest of my life drinking ale, paying Paul, staying up late watching Only Fools and Horses, getting everybody else to do my work for me, and just complaining when I've got to do any semblance of manual work. That way, clearly, you preserve your health. Exhibit A, sitting next to me. Anyway, enough about the Crookmeister. Lovely to see you. Hope you didn't get ill. We'll be back later on in the week to review all the big action and preview all of the action that's happening over the weekend, because it's another big weekend on talkSPORT.